In this video, I'm going to show you a fully automated and low-cost system for building out fully automated faceless videos like this. You can do vertical videos or horizontal videos like this.
Dominate every screen, every device, seemingly every moment of our lives.
Today, I'll go in depth on how the system works from beginning to end. And by the way, if you want to get access to this course today, I have a complete course that shows you how to build it from beginning to end. Now, before I get into the details of how this system works, let me show you a quick demo of how we can completely automate an entire video. Here, I'm working with an active story, the LA robbery, and I'm going to come down here to manage the actual story or the script of that upcoming movie. I could have uploaded a raw news story into the source here and had it generate the story for me, but right now I'm going to go ahead and just use a script that was already generated. And then once I go ahead and approve that story, what's going to happen is it's going to start to create all of the different scenes and the different shots for each scene that we need in order to fully build out this video. Now what's actually happening here is we're taking that story and breaking it up into scenes, and we're also breaking it up into shots, and we're also creating image and video prompts so that we can completely automate the entire process. So here you have all of the different scenes that are getting generated, and then if we come over to shots, you will see that we now have some number of shots per scene. And you can see we're already starting to create shots from those images. We have audio that's being generated for each of those shots, and it's going to complete each of these scenes, at which time it will be able to then process and combine all of those shots into a final scene. And then it'll be able to take all of the different scenes and combine that into a final movie, which will take about 4 minutes. So if I jump back to shots here, we can see the process as it goes. It's pretty cool to watch. You can also view by images. So we're just looking at the images where you can see the image prompts. Of course, you can change these manually if you'd like. Here is the audio tab where we can see all of the audio being generated. And then here is the video. You can see the system triggering to build each of those videos out one by one. And then once all the shots in a given scene are completed, it will be able to join all of these videos together for a scene. And then if I jump back to shots here, you can see that it will also mix the audio and video together into a video that has them both together.
Up to $30 million was stolen from.
Now, because generating all of these different shots can use a lot of your credits, for this demonstration, I'm just using ChatGPT DALL-E 3 to generate these images. There are much better platforms for generating images that you can also integrate into the system. I'll show you that in a bit, but just to demonstrate the power of the system, I'm going to use ChatGPT. So if I jump back to the scenes here, you can see that we have 3 of the scenes are already complete. We have those videos, and it has already created the final scene for each of these scenes. So if we come back to shots and just take a look at what might be holding up the rest of the automation, it looks like it's this one here. So we can take a look at the video section here. It looks like that one process is still running. If I jump over to make, it does look like we have one unresolved task here. I have error handling in place to fix that automatically, but we can always just generate these again if we like to just process that and have that move forward. Now we've got that success code, we've got that video. So now if we jump back to scenes, we should see the rest of this process continue forward. Notice the shots ready just moved to 1. So now we'll see the final video show up here shortly. Once we have that video, if there were audio, it would also mix that. Since there's no audio in this case because we mixed it at the shot level, it goes ahead and creates that final scene. Then if we jump back to stories and we manage the media here, we'll see that it's taking all of those final scenes, combining that into a final video, combining that into a final story. It could have mixed audio here if you had uploaded that manually. Now it's going to generate the SRT file, then the captions, and then it will finally produce a final cut. We see those SRT files just popped in here. Now it's generating the final video with captions to finally produce a final video that looks a lot like this.
They're not just keeping up with AI and media, they're leading the revolution. They are the no-code architects.
All right, so first let me go ahead and explain a bit about the difference between this system and how it's better than the previous system that I released a few months ago. First and foremost, I really tried to design this system and the layout so that it felt like an actual application where you were building out a video. Airtable by default is really a spreadsheet on steroids. It tends to look like a database, but if you put a lot of care into how you define your different views and the different filters, you can really make this feel like an actual application that is fun to work in, and that's what I try to do in this. So if we take a look here at the active stories, it's very easy to select which story you're working on, and based off of what you select here, you're going to see that specific story, the scenes or the given shots that are associated with that specific story. And then beyond that, one of the most powerful parts of this system is being able to define different story types. So if I come up here to story types, you can add as many different story types as you want. You can also control whether they are active or not, and the different properties like the width and height of the final output. So you can do horizontal videos or vertical videos like I showed you in the demo. So this view here will show you the basic properties of the story. And then you can go into different layers of the story, like all of the different prompts that will go into generating the actual story, all of the given shots, the scenes, how the scenes break down into individual shots, how to generate the image prompts for your AI models, and also how to generate the video prompts for the video AI models. And you can have different prompts for each story type, and I'll get more in depth on these prompts in just a few minutes. Moving on, we also have the AI actions, which allows you to set up different AI actions for different story types. And what I mean by that is if you have a specific story type that you are building here, you can define which AI model you want to use for your image generation. So each different story type could actually use a different AI model to generate an image. You could define a different AI model for generating audio. You could define a different AI model for generating video. Currently, this story is using the no-code architects toolkit. I'll explain that in just a second, to generate the video from the image, which is simply taking this image and applying a slight zoom. But if I were to remove this action, I could open this up and apply any of these other video AI models to the process. So I could use the Luma Labs API, I could use the Kling API, I could use the Leonardo API, and it's very easy to add different video actions or audio actions or image actions without having to change the system. You can simply go up to the Actions tab, and if I were to scroll down here to video generation, I could simply add in a new model, and I can also apply a sort order so it shows up in the right spot in the order that I prefer. And then all I would need to do is build out the automation in Make. So I would come into Make and then I would simply build a branch like this that would perform that action. Then I would come in here and I would simply grab the webhook from this module. I would paste it right here. And then if I came back to the story type and came back to the video action and then added a new video action, we would see the new model that I just added here. And notice that it's following the sort order that I applied in the table here. And we can do that with the audio action and also the image actions. And then furthermore, from this section right here, we can define if we want each of these different AI actions to run automatically once the system generates the scenes and the shots. So for example, the process I ran at the beginning of this video where I generated the full video, notice that the auto run for image was on, the auto run for audio was on, and the auto run for video was on. We also told the system to automatically create captions. So when that shot was created, the automations immediately started to generate these videos automatically. Now, if that wasn't set, once the shot was created, you would have a chance to come and mess with the prompt and update it, and then you could trigger it manually to then generate the image. And that's going to be the same for automatically running the audio generation and also the video generation. So you have quite a bit of control of how much you want to automate and how much you want to do manually. Furthermore, in the shots, even if you had automatically set up a given story type to generate a certain type of image with a certain AI model, you can always override that. Let's go to the videos. So let's say in this story type, we are using the NCAA toolkit to generate the video with a slight zoom, or maybe let's pretend that we are using the Luma Labs API. If we're in our shots here, regardless of what we set in the story type, we can always come here and run whatever model that we want. So there's a great deal of flexibility in terms of how you define what the story type can do and even overriding that beyond that. There's also a really amazing feature for image references. Notice here, these two story types have these different image references that are connected to the story. It's very easy to configure which image references you are using in the system. You can remove them. You can add others simply by clicking like that. And that's just pulling from this files table, which stores every single video or audio or image that you have generated so that you can reuse it later. And what that lets you do is if you're in your shots here and you are generating images, you can come to your system here, and then I can say, hey, when you create this image, I'd like you to use this image as a reference. And if during the process, the AI model generates something that you really like, say you really like this image, You can also save it as a reference just by clicking that button. That will save that reference. And then if I come to the section here to add a reference, you'll see that that has already been added right here to the image references. Now, one final powerful piece of this system is the approvals. So not only do you have the option to automatically run the AI generation of any of the models that you have defined for your story type, but you can also control the approvals. So once that video or audio or image is generated, should we auto approve it so that it just goes through and the system fully builds out the video for us? Or should a human actually go through and approve the shots manually before it moves on? So if we come back here to the shots and we'll go to all shots, you can see in this scenario, we did go through and approve them manually. But if I were to jump back to a different story, I'm going to jump to the LA robbery, which is using the classic dramatic movie vertical. Again, I'll go to the story type just to take a look. Notice that this one here is auto approving the shots, the scenes, and the story. So if I come back to the shots, you'll notice that no human actually did the approval here, but it did move on automatically because of the auto approval was set to true. And you can set that at the shot, the scene, and the story level. You can also auto approve the source and the story generation so that if I was in a specific story and I was managing the script and the story, if I were to drop in a news article here, it could automatically approve the source instead of a manual approval. It would take that source content and generate the story script. And if auto approved story generation was on, it would automatically move to the next step where it would go ahead and generate the scenes and the shots. Otherwise, you have to manually approve it. So these story types give you a great amount of control over defining different story types, different types of prompts, different image generation, different video generation, different models, different image references, auto generation or not, and auto approvals or not. So you can go from completely automated to completely manual or anything in between. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It tells me what type of content you want more of. Next, I did want to cover one more important part of this faceless video generator, the No-Code Architects Toolkit. Not only is this a make module that you can use in your automation of content, such as these faceless videos where we have to merge audio and video, generate SRT files and captions, but it's also a completely free open source project that you can use and download very easily to launch your own API server that will allow you to reduce the cost when generating these videos. One of the main problems with this first video generator that I released several months ago was the high cost to fully build out this video with voiceover and all the captions, largely just due to all the video editing that we had to do in terms of generating video files and merging them together and then mixing them with audio. And you had to do that at several different layers. For each shot, we have to mix the audio and video into a final file, and we have to do that for each scene. And then for each scene, we have to take all of the final shots, mix any new audio that we have there with the video to produce the final scene. And then we need to do that for all the scenes. And then for the final story, we need to take all of those scenes, mix in the audio with the video, produce that final video, generate the SRT, and then generate the captions. With the No-Code Architects Toolkit, you can simply use this free tool and deploy your own low-cost server to do all of these actions at a fraction of the cost. All right, so now let's go ahead and actually build out a whole new story from scratch. I'm gonna jump up to Active Story. In this section of the system, this is where we control the active story that we are working on. So we've been using the LA robbery as an example, and so you can see here the active story is the LA robbery. But if I wanted to add a brand new story, I could add another one just by clicking this here, and I'm gonna type in ice cream. I found a story suitable for an example online that isn't super negative, so we'll go ahead with that one. You'll notice that the system automatically moved that story to active. And so if we jump over to the scenes here, we're gonna see that we're only seeing one scene and one shot for that news story. I'll come back to stories here. And again, remember, if I were to select a different active story and then jump to the scenes, what's gonna happen is the other story is going to disappear and we are only going to see the active story. If we were trying to manage multiple stories in this one interface, it would be rather chaotic. So at any given time in the shots and the scenes, and in this section below where we are managing the story, we are only seeing the active story. So let's go ahead and jump back to the ice cream story. And now we are faced with the option of picking a new story type. So instead of just picking something that I've already used and demoed, let's jump back to story types and actually create one from scratch. So I'm down here in the approvals. I'm going to jump up to properties because this is probably the best place to start. I'm going to add a new story type. We're going to call that YouTube demo ice cream. And then what we do next is put in the width and the height. I'll go ahead and put in a 1920 by 1080, a standard YouTube video aspect ratio. It automatically calculates the aspect ratio for us. And so now we have the basic details. What we'd want to do is jump over to the prompting. So now it's in this section here where we get to define how the system will build out the script, how it will build out all of the different scenes, and how it will build out all of the different shots. And not only that, but how many scenes should it create for any given story? And how many shots should it create for any given scene? So there are defaults that come with the system, but that is completely configurable. And when you are creating your own story type from scratch, I strongly recommend that you use one of the other examples and adapt it for your situation. Because the system is very flexible, you can modify how it works. There are a few technicalities that you need to follow in order for the automations to run correctly. So first off here, we have the story prompt, system prompt. So this is simply where we tell the system who to act like. So you can see here in the classic dramatic movie, we are simply instructing the AI model to perform as an old school movie producer and scriptwriter from the LA movie scene. So we're just giving some context to the AI model on who it is and how it should perform. Then what this one does here is it's the story prompt, user prompt. So when we are in stories and when we are in the managed story, so if we were to drop in a news article, I'm gonna come right here, just cut and paste this news article here. You can grab the whole thing. If you were to paste that into the source here, then I'll jump back to story type. What we're doing here is we're telling the system, how do we convert that raw news article into a script? So you'll really want to modify this per story type so that whatever your source is properly getting turned into a script. And based off of the source, you're definitely going to want to tweak that so that it does the right thing. Converting a news article is going to be different from converting a book into a script. Then in this next section here, we're getting into the actual shot generation. We are simply describing to the AI what it's responsible to. Here in the classic dramatic movie, we are saying you're an expert storyteller whom is responsible for breaking up a larger story into various scenes and shots for a movie. So it's just context for these user prompts to follow. So before I get into these, again, you would most likely just take these here. We have our YouTube demo ice cream. I'll actually make it say ice cream. And then we could just paste those here, and then we could do any modifications that we need to tailor it to this. And then moving on, now we actually need to build out all of the different scenes. So once we are here in Manage Story and we actually approve that story, it's going to start to generate those scenes, and then finally it will generate the shots. But first we have to generate those scenes. So in the story types here, this is where the prompt is really helping the AI generate that. So if we expand this here, we're going to see review the story text above. And so the system will automatically take the story and it will insert above so that it's referencing something that's actually there when the automation actually runs. It says review the story text provided above and break it into logical scenes. And so then we tried to describe the best that we can so that it knows how to do this properly. Each scene should be a direct excerpt from the original text with no changes, additions, and paraphrasing. So I did that because I didn't want it to extrapolate and try to come up with new text after we've already approved an actual script for the video. Ensure the wording in each scene matches the original text exactly as written, so it doesn't change anything. And then what it does is it provides a JSON structure. If you're not technical, don't worry about it. You would just be able to leave this as it is. You wouldn't want to change this, but it's telling the system to output the results in this specific format so that the automation can use it programmatically. And then I simply said, remember, do not alter the text in any way. The goal is to segment the original content into smaller, logical scenes without modifying the language. So now if I were to jump over to the automation and look at the automation that actually does that, we can open up this first automation here. Notice that we're mapping in that system prompt that we defined earlier here. And then we have that user prompt that we were just talking about, where we actually insert the script story and then we execute the actual prompt. So again, remember this prompt referenced the script above it, and that's how we get the two together. We also asked the AI to generate a 3 to 4 word scene name for each scene. And if we jump over to the scenes and we look at a story that has already been generated, then we'll see that here. So jumping back to story types and moving along, you would be able to just take this, copy it here, and if there were changes that you needed to make, you could do those here. And then next what we need to do is that from the original text, for each scene, we need to break that scene into individual shots. So we do another prompt that's very similar. Above is the scene text from the story script. Review the scene text above and break it down into a logical shot. Each shot should be a direct excerpt from the original scene with no changes, additions, or paraphrasing. So again, the same thing. We don't want it to mess with our original script. And again, additional language to ensure that. And then here's where we break down the individual scene text into smaller shots. Each shot should contain 6 to 8 words with no less than 5. Anything less than 5, it gets pretty short. And then I give it the direction that it's okay to break up single sentences into multiple shots. It's more important to break apart the shots into a cohesive idea than following a rigid sentence structure. So we don't need to create the shots based off of sentences. In fact, it's better to break them up. And then I just clarified, remember, a shot can span across 2 different sentences. Do not alter the text in any way. The goal is to segment the original scene into smaller logical parts without modifying the language. And then again, we have to give it a structure of a JSON so that we can use it effectively in the automation. And again, we give each shot its own 3 to 4 word name, just so when we're in the shots and we're managing these, we have these little names here to identify a little bit more about the shot without having to see all of the audio script text, which you could see here, which may not necessarily represent a good title for the shot. So jumping back to the story types, this shot prompt is going to help us build out all of those different shots so we could cut and paste that into the new story. And then again, if we were to take a look at the automation, that is happening right here. Again, we're referencing now the screen script, and then we're giving the shot prompt here, which is referencing the script above. And then for context, I also pass it the entire script just so that it has context when it's building this out, so that it knows the entire story instead of just being restricted to that specific scene. And then again, for each shot, we need to generate an image prompt for generating the image, and also a video prompt for generating the video. And here's where we get more into describing the guidelines for the image. So in this one here, I'm creating more of a comic book style. And this one here, it's a little bit more realistic. Create ultra realistic images of LA because I'm using the classic dramatic movie. So here's where you can get into defining how you want those image prompts to work. And then here you can get into how the video prompt should work. And you can give it all sorts of different examples of things that it might pick from, like pan, tilt, tracking, anything like that. So if you're creating a brand new story type from scratch, you would simply copy those as well, and then you would paste them in to your new story. And then moving on, then you would come to your AI actions, and then here's where you would define which image action you want to set for generating your images. And again, remember, you can add as many different models to the system as you want simply by coming to the actions, using video generation here as an example. Remember, we set up this new model. You would simply create the automation for that. This automation here is using OpenAI DALL-E 3 to generate the image. Notice it's very simple. It's just 4 modules. So adding new models to the system is quite easy. So just to save on credits, I'm going to go here and just go to OpenAI, but I could easily go to Flux or Leonardo or any other model that you wanted to use. Then I could also pick some reference images, which would be sent to the model, just like that. Then I would decide, hey, do I want this to automatically run as soon as the shot is created? Or do I want a chance to come and look at that image prompt and modify it before I actually run that model? So for now, I'm just going to leave that blank just to show you what that looks like. Then also here, we have the option to auto upscale an image. So there are a lot of image generators that will return to you various options or a lower scale image for you to review before you move on. If you would like to auto scale that as soon as it's generated, you can simply click on this and add an image upscaler right like that. And again, all of these are defined in your actions and can be easily added to your automations. The system does come pre-built with a bunch of different models. Then you would come in and set your audio action. I pretty much just use 11 Labs for now, but you could add others as well. Let's go ahead and set this to auto run. And then we can also set the video action. When I'm just testing things out, I really like to just use the no-code architects toolkit, image to video. All it does is take that video and gives it a slight zoom, and that way you get an effect, but you don't have to spend all of your credits on the various A models like Luma Labs, which can cost quite a bit per video. Then you can decide whether you want to auto run that or not. When I'm using the No Code Architects toolkit, I usually set that to auto run. When I'm using something like Luma Labs, where it's much more expensive to run a single operation, I'm most likely not going to run that automatically so that I could check out the prompt here in the video section right here. I could check that out before I actually run the action. And then I could simply use the checkbox to manually trigger it, or I could use any of the other models here like Cling as well. Again, even if I've defined the default action here in the story type. And then right here, I'm just simply deciding whether or not this story type should be captioned. And if I click that, then once the final video is ready, it will automatically caption it for us. And then finally here we have the approvals. This is after the generations have been completed. Should we approve it before it moves on to the scene and the story? So if I come back here to the shots and we come back here to all shots where we manage each shot, where we can see the audio and video, the question really is, do we want to review the audio and the video manually before we create the mix? Here you can see this particular story type auto approved it. We did not check anything like you can for a manual approval, but you can see that it's still approved. If I were to come back to story types and turn off auto approve shots and then come back to shots, you're gonna see that the auto approve for everything is now off. This approval is on because we checked it, but notice that now this approval is based off of our manual checkbox. If we come here to story types and we auto approve the shot, then these are automatically approved. And if we come back to story types, it's the same for scenes and also for stories. So if I come to the scenes here, it's that same process. Do we want to review this video and potentially any audio that we are trying to mix before we create that final mix, which is merging that audio and video? Now, it's also a good time just to reiterate that while this system is automatically creating audio and video, you can always upload your own audio and video to the system to override or to add B-roll. If I were to upload a video here, that would override any video that the system had created, or the system could not create any video at all, and you could actually manually build out an entire video in this system. Of course, those decisions are probably going to be more nuanced, and in most cases, you're probably going to be uploading audio as an audio track or music, or as one-off scenes as B-roll to transition from one AI shot to another, but really it's up to you in your creative endeavor. So jumping back to the story types. So again, we have the auto approvals for shots, the auto approval for scenes, and the auto approval for stories. When you're first starting out with the system, I encourage everyone when they're first building out their first story and their first story types is not to auto approve everything, just so you get a feeling of how the system actually works. But for now, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is for our ice cream demo, I'm going to, again, I still didn't spell it right. There we go, finally. I am going to leave off auto approve on shots just so I can show you that when we've run it the first time, but I'll go ahead and leave these on. And then for our AI actions, again, just to start, I'm gonna leave auto run off. I'm not gonna do any auto upscaling. I am going to auto run the audio and auto run the video once the images are ready, and I'm gonna create captions. So just double checking, we have our approvals correct, we have our AI actions correct, we created our prompts. We didn't really modify them for this ice cream demo, but that's fine. And we have our properties. So now we can come up to stories. I'm gonna go ahead and switch back to the ice cream demo. I'm gonna select our new ice cream story type. It's gonna set up the width and height. We have our aspect ratio. We don't have a final cut, and we haven't started running anything, so we don't have the total creation time. It keeps track of how long something takes to be created. You can also archive your old stories. And so now from here, if I were to come down to manage media, there's really not much to manage here because we haven't even created anything for the shots or scenes yet. So we certainly don't have any media to approve or look at the story level. So next thing we would do is come to the manage story. And so now here we are with our news source here. Remember, if we were to have come to the story type and gone to approvals and automatically approved the source, it would have already created the script. And then from the script, if we auto approve that script, it would have already started to create the scenes and the shots, but we didn't. So I'm gonna come back to story. And if I were to click approve story, it's simply going to take this and run it through our automation here, which is gonna take that source and create the script. So I'll go ahead and approve that. That's going to generate our story script here. If I were to jump back to the automation, we just saw that running here. If I jump back, we now have our script. And now what the system is telling us here is that you can't auto-generate the scenes and the shots when scenes already exist. So when you first create a scene, it will often just create a default here so that you have something here. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this, and then I'm gonna come back to the story, and then I'm gonna go ahead and approve that story, and now we'll see that it's gonna start to create scenes and then shots from those scenes. You'll see the warning comes back saying that you are no longer able to automatically start this process until you again clear out the scenes. If I come to the scenes now, we can see that it's starting to create the various scenes. Let's jump back to the story. I'm not sure exactly how long the actual story was. Jump back to the scenes. So now we've got the scenes being generated. It automatically sorts them. This is something that you can obviously change. If I change that, it's going to change the end story if I want to rearrange things. And then more importantly, if I jump to the shots, notice that the audio is getting generated, right? Because in our story type, if I go to the AI actions, we said we're going to go ahead and automatically create with this auto run all of the audio. We also said that about the video, but since we don't have the images yet, we cannot actually create the video. So I'm gonna jump back to the shots. So now I'm gonna jump to images. We're starting to develop all those different shots. You can actually start this process before this is done. I could pick an image reference right here and now. I could just go ahead and select that if I cared. Sometimes when it's generating, it kind of pushes you around, but if I were to select that, then again, remember, it's not generating the image automatically. I could modify that image prompt for that particular shot. So now if I wanted to generate that image, I could simply say image go. That's going to run the image action. Again, we've selected OpenAI just to save on credits from the more expensive AI models. It's going to generate that image using this automation that is right here. You can see the audio is getting generated quite quickly right here. It just so happens that this particular story has quite a few different shots. And so now here we have the image. Now, if I jump down to the video, you can see that it's automatically running the video action because again, in our story type, we said we're going to auto run the video. And so now that it has a image to work from, it's going to go ahead and try to create that video, and it's going to use the NCA toolkit. Remember, this is the free tool that allows you to run all of these different actions like combining videos and mixing audio and video and turning images into video with a slight zoom. It does that at a very low cost, almost for free. Now keep in mind, this image prompt that I used is creating comic book style images, so that's why it looks like this. If I jump back to stories and I went to one of my other active stories, here's a video I made for my community, the No Code Architects, where I used ultra realistic images. Notice all of these. It was made with a better image generator and are much more realistic. So I'll come back to stories, go back to ice cream demo, and then if I were to look at this video here, we would see that it slightly zooms in using the No Code Architects toolkit. So that's a way you can automate the video without having to use Luma Labs at an expensive cost. If I really was in love with this image, which I'm not really, but that's a different story, I could save it as a reference, and then I could use that same image to produce the rest of the images. So if I come in here now, we're going to see that we also have this image as a reference. I could modify the prompt, and then I could continue on and I could go. So this is obviously a scenario where I'd really want to go through and I care about each one of these shots quite a bit. I don't want to waste any credits. I want to make the best video possible. So I'm going to go through each of these image prompts. I'm going to modify it before I actually create anything. I'm going to go one by one. I'm going to finish it, and then I can move on. And again, also, you can pick any image model generator you want. You could use Flux, you could use Leonardo, whatever's defined in your actions and whatever automation you have built out on the back end. And again, remember, this system comes with a lot of these pre-built. So now again, just to demonstrate, if I were to come back to stories now and I were to come to the AI actions and turn on this auto run for the images, what we're going to see if I come back to shots is that all of a sudden, all of these shots are going to start to auto generate all on their own. And you can see that happening right here. And then once all of these are done, then it will also create all of the videos. Now, one thing that I've done with the make automations, which is really cool, is I've added in a lot of error handling. So notice that we're running a lot of automations all at once here. Sometimes you will come across an API that doesn't want you to run that many operations at once. And if that happens, what's going to happen is it's going to break, it's going to stop, it will wait until the API has had a chance to recover, and then it will run it again. That way you don't get stuck in a situation where your automation just totally breaks down and you don't know where to get back from. And so now you can see we're starting to generate some of those videos. If I were to come back to all shots here, this is really where you get to see the big picture view of the current state of your story, scenes, and shots. And again, notice that the approvals are waiting on us. We could open up each of these videos, look at it. We could redo the image. We could redo the video. We could use a different AI generator for the video. We could do whatever we needed to do to fix it, and then we could approve it. Or in the story type, in the approvals, you can come and simply have that auto approved. In that scenario, you're going to notice that everything is automatically approved, and then everything is just going to be automatically created. It's going to take the audio, take the video, and start to generate those final scenes for you. These two shots are complete. If we were to jump back to scenes here, well, now we have all three. So now what's going to happen if we were to look at this particular scene in our scenes, so we're looking at this scene here, notice that it has all of the shots and it says shots are ready. So it's telling us that for this given scene, all the shots are ready. These are not ready. They're all zeros because it hasn't finished all of the different operations. It hasn't mixed, it hasn't combined the videos, it hasn't combined the final shot, and so it won't be able to move on. But this particular scene can move on. It's going to take these final shots and it's going to combine it into the video for final approval. Now it might take a second because we have a bunch of other operations that are happening beforehand. So actually, if we were to come up to the No-Code Architects toolkit, which also has error handling, we're going to see here that we have some operations that have not been resolved, and that is because they are waiting on other operations to finish first. Once it's had a bit of time, it will automatically resolve and run, and we will be able to finish the story. And there you go. So now we can see that that process is now moving forward. It's producing the final scene. And so as all of these pieces come together and finish up, we'll start to see the shots being completed. You can see this one is, and it's moving forward. And so once all of the shots are ready, once all of the videos are created, and once all of the final scenes are created, which is the audio mix and the video, moves forward to the final scene, then we're going to come up to stories. And if we were managing the media, we would see something very similar, except that we're only on one row because this is the final story. We can see the final scenes being created. It looks like we have about 2 so far. And if we come back to scenes here from the overview, we would see that that is the case. Look here, we have 2 scenes that are fully finished. Once these were all finished, if we were to come back to stories, it would say scenes ready 1. We could upload our own audio if we cared to. It's going to create that video based off of our approvals. We could approve it. We have our SRT that would then be generated, assuming we had captions, and then it would create the captions. We'd get the final cut, and then we would see the total creation time. Now, because this story has quite a few scenes and quite a few shots, I'm not going to wait for that entire process to finish. We saw that in the demo, but this process would finish on its own. That's quite humorous there. And we would be able to finally have a completed story, just like we did here in the LA robbery example. Just like we do here, this one took about 6 minutes, and this one had 4 scenes with a total of, I guess it's about, what is that? 3, 5, 8, 10 shots. So like I said, if you want to get your hands on this today, jump into the No-Code Architects community. I've got a complete course that shows you how to set this up very easily from beginning to end. It shows you how to set up the No-Code Architects toolkit, how to install these modules. Installing these make blueprints is super easy. You just import them. I'll send them to you. You click on it, you open it up, and this entire automation just opens up just like that. You'll get this Airtable database. You'll be in a growing community with a bunch of other people building this out as well. You can submit questions for tech support, and I've got calls almost every single day. Plus, I've got a Make an Airtable workshop and a bunch of other templates you get access to. You'll also get updates to the system as it comes out. I'd love to see you there. Either way, I hope you found this video valuable, and I'll see you on the next one.